I called my parents, delivering news that would shatter anyone. My husband had died in an accident, and our daughter lay in a coma. Their response? They were too busy at my brother's birthday party. Just a week later, they appeared. Not offering comfort, but demanding half of the potential settlement money. I showed them a photo, one of my husband, another of our daughter. The color drained from their faces as the grim reality finally sank in. It was a truth far from what they'd anticipated. I can still pinpoint the precise moment my entire world collapsed. 2:17 p.m. A voice on the phone delivered the devastating news. My husband was gone, and our daughter fought for her life. Yet, what truly followed, the heartless betrayal from my own parents, revealed the depths of human callousness and redefined what family means when financial gain enters the equation. Before that dreadful Tuesday afternoon irrevocably altered everything, Michael and I had meticulously crafted what I believed was a perfect existence. We met during our junior year at Northwestern, both dedicated students. He was a towering, cheerful architecture major with the warmest brown eyes I'd ever encountered, and a laugh that instantly brought smiles to everyone nearby. Post-graduation, he embarked on a career in civil engineering, while I became a financial analyst in Chicago. 3 years later, we married on a gorgeous October day, golden leaves swirling as we exchanged vows. A year on, we purchased our first home, a delightful 3-bedroom house with a spacious backyard, ideal for the family we envisioned. However, fate had different plans. After years of fertility treatments, enduring 3 miscarriages, and shedding countless tears, we were on the brink of surrendering. Then our miracle arrived, Hannah Elizabeth Bennett. She came into the world after a challenging pregnancy, small but spirited, possessing her father's brown eyes and my determined chin. From the moment we welcomed her home, Hannah became our entire world. Michael would dedicate hours to constructing intricate blanket forts in our living room, always adding structural supports he deemed essential for true fort stability. Every Sunday morning, the 3 of us engaged in pancake competitions, crafting increasingly outlandish shapes, then voting on the most imaginative creation. Hannah's unicorn usually triumphed, though Michael's Sears Tower attempt always merited an honorable mention for sheer ambition. Our evening ritual was my most cherished time. After dinner, we'd gather at the kitchen table for homework, art, or board games. Michael taught Hannah chess at just 6, and she astonished us by genuinely defeating him by age 8. She inherited her strategic mind from you, Liv, he'd proudly declare, though we both knew her competitive fire was all Michael. Throughout those joyful years, my bond with my parents, Barbara and Richard Ward, stayed complex. Their favoritism toward my younger brother Connor was perpetually apparent. When I graduated with honors from Northwestern, they attended, but left prematurely to assist Connor with his sophomore dorm move-in. 3 years prior, upon my significant promotion, they canceled our celebratory dinner because Connor required a ride to a basketball game. I tried to shrug off the pain, but it always lingered. Michael would gently squeeze my hand under the table at family gatherings when my mother cut off my stories to inquire about Connor's latest girlfriend, or my father covertly checked his watch as I described my work. "There's your real family," Michael would softly say, gesturing towards Hannah, often drawing nearby. I truly believed him. The accident's morning began like any typical Tuesday. Michael brewed coffee while I prepared Hannah's lunch. She was brimming with excitement for her afternoon swimming competition. "Mom, watch for my backstroke flip turn, just like Coach Janet showed us," she exclaimed, demonstrating with her arms at the breakfast table. "I wish I could, sweetie, but I have that quarterly review meeting," I apologized, zipping her lunch into her dolphin-shaped bag. "Dad will record it for me, right?" Michael confirmed, already planning his camera angles, kissing the top of my head as he walked by. I'm envisioning a wide shot for the race, then a tight zoom for the victory celebration. Hannah rolled her eyes, but a smile touched her lips. "Dad, what if I don't win?" "Then I'll erase the evidence, and we'll tell Mom you were robbed by." Biased judging, he winked, making us both laugh. Those were our final normal moments, our last shared breakfast. The last time I heard Michael's infectious laugh or saw Hannah's characteristic eye roll. The last ordinary morning before life utterly shattered. I kissed them goodbye at 7:45 a.m. Michael planned to drop Hannah at school, head to his construction site, then collect her early for the swim meet. I drove to the office, my thoughts already consumed by my 2 p.m. presentation. My meeting progressed smoothly. I was outlining our fourth quarter projections when my phone vibrated. I disregarded it. It vibrated repeatedly. After the fourth buzz, in 5 minutes I apologized to the room and checked the screen. An unfamiliar number. As I stepped out, it rang once more. "Is this Olivia Bennett?" A somber voice inquired. "This is Officer Martinez with Chicago PD. There's been an accident involving your husband and daughter." My world tipped sideways. I gripped the wall, fighting to remain standing. The following words would cleave my life into a stark before and after, though I wasn't yet aware. "You need to come to Northwestern Memorial immediately. Your husband's vehicle was hit by another driver. I regret to inform you that Michael Bennett was pronounced dead at the scene. Your daughter Hannah is in critical condition." I have no recollection of dropping my phone or of my colleague Rachel discovering me crumpled in the hallway. I don't recall her driving me to the hospital, though she later shared she'd sped through red lights to get me there quickly. My next distinct memory is standing in the emergency department, shouting my husband's name, as if sheer volume could summon him back from wherever he now resided. The accident report offered a clinical, stark account of the worst day of my existence. At 1:42 p.m., a red pickup truck, driven by Thomas Wells, 46, disregarded a red light at Madison and Halsted. His blood alcohol level was subsequently recorded at 0.21, almost triple the legal limit. The truck slammed into the driver's side of Michael's silver Honda Civic at roughly 48 miles per hour. Michael suffered immediate, catastrophic head trauma, dying instantly. Hannah, secured in her booster seat on the passenger side, sustained a severe traumatic brain injury, multiple broken ribs, a punctured lung, and a fractured femur. Officer Martinez relayed these grim facts to me in a hushed room off the emergency department. I couldn't comprehend them. All I could grasp was that Michael was taking Hannah to her swim meet. She had been so thrilled to showcase her new flip turn. She never got the chance. Dr. Lawrence, a neurosurgeon with gentle eyes and graying temples, described Hannah's condition using terms that felt like a foreign tongue: intracranial pressure, induced coma, cranial monitoring, cerebral edema. I nodded as if I understood, but all I truly registered was that my 9-year-old daughter might never awaken. "Can I see my husband?" I asked after Dr. Lawrence finished detailing Hannah's ongoing surgery. A social worker named Patricia guided me to another floor, attempting to prepare me with talk of trauma and how Michael would look altered. Yet nothing could have truly prepared me for seeing my once vibrant, laughing husband lying motionless beneath unforgiving fluorescent lights. His face appeared surprisingly peaceful, yet it was wrong somehow, devoid of the vibrant animation that had defined him. I touched his hand. It was cold. That's when I finally shattered, collapsing across his chest, pleading with him to awaken. Not to abandon us, to return and help me because I couldn't bear this burden alone. I don't recall how long I stayed. Eventually, Patricia gently led me back to the surgical waiting area. Hannah remained in surgery. I sat alone, fixated on my phone. I had to call my parents. They needed to know. They needed to be here. Barbara answered on the fourth ring, sounds of celebration echoing in the background. "Olivia, we're right in the middle of Connor's birthday lunch." "Mom," I choked through tears. "Michael's dead." "An accident. Hannah's in surgery. I need you." A pause. "Oh my goodness, that's terrible." Her voice dropped slightly yet remained composed. "We're at Rosetta's with all of Connor's friends. We've rented the entire back room. Can this truly not wait until this evening?" "Connor is about to unwrap his gifts." I stood in disbelief. "My husband is dead, Mom. Your granddaughter might not survive the night." "I understand, dear, but we simply cannot leave right now. It would be rude to everyone who came to celebrate. I'll call you tonight to check in." The call disconnected. I sat frozen, a fresh agony joining the tsunami of grief. My parents weren't coming. They had prioritized Connor's birthday party over the most horrific moment of my life. My friend Megan arrived an hour later, responding to my frantic text. She stayed with me through the night as Hannah endured one surgery after another. She brought coffee I couldn't drink and sandwiches I couldn't eat. She contacted Michael's parents in Florida, who immediately booked flights despite their age and health issues. She reached out to my boss, explained the situation, and arranged bereavement leave. She did everything my own parents should have done. The initial 72 hours blurred into a haze of grief and terror. I moved between sitting by Hannah's bed in the pediatric ICU, her tiny body tethered to countless machines, and making arrangements for Michael's funeral. His parents arrived, utterly shell-shocked and pale with sorrow, yet they still found the strength to support me. My own parents called once, briefly, offering vague murmurs about visiting when things settled down. Dr. Lawrence explained that Hannah's condition was critical, but stable. She had been placed in a medically induced coma to aid her brain's recovery. The next few days are crucial, he stated gently. All we can do now is wait and monitor. So I waited. I slept in a chair beside Hannah's bed, waking at every beep or shift in the rhythm of the machines sustaining her. Nurses like Sophia and Daniel became my anchors, clarifying each procedure, every medication, every subtle indicator of hope or concern. On the fourth day, a man in a suit appeared at Hannah's door, introducing himself as Jeffrey Williams, an attorney specializing in accident and wrongful death cases. Your friend Megan contacted me, he explained. The driver who struck your husband was highly intoxicated and has multiple prior DUIs. There will likely be both criminal charges and the potential for a substantial civil settlement. I don't wish to overwhelm you now, he added, but certain legal steps should be taken quickly to protect your and your daughter's interests. I signed papers I barely glanced at. Jeffrey promised to manage everything, keeping me informed, but unburdened. Focus on your daughter, he said gently. Let me handle the legal aspects. That evening, an insurance representative named Thomas called, explaining that the drunk driver's insurance company was already discussing settlement possibilities. His words washed over me, devoid of meaning. No sum of money would revive Michael or ensure Hannah's awakening. As Hannah's first week in the hospital bled into the second, I realized I had to plan Michael's funeral by myself.
His parents
had temporarily returned to Florida to arrange long-term care for Michael's father, who suffered from advanced Parkinson's and couldn't be left with neighbors indefinitely. My parents sent flowers, but explained Connor had a job interview they needed to help him prepare for. The betrayal deepened with each passing day. Organizing your husband's funeral while your child battles for her life creates a unique kind of hell. I selected a casket while sitting beside Hannah's hospital bed, my laptop balanced on my knees, the rhythmic beep of her heart monitor the sole sound in the room. I chose flowers during her morning neurological assessment, half listening. As Dr. Lawrence detailed minor improvements in her intracranial pressure, I drafted Michael's obituary at 3 a.m., tears blurring the screen as I attempted to condense 40 years of vibrant life into 3 short paragraphs. My parents finally called the day before the funeral. We're so sorry about missing your calls, Olivia, my mother stated, without genuine apology in her tone. Connor's birthday celebration ran quite late. And then he had that big interview with the architectural firm. Your father has been coaching him all week. I remained silent, the quiet stretching uncomfortably over the line. Anyway, she continued briskly, we should be able to make it to the funeral tomorrow, assuming nothing else arises. What time is it again? 2 p.m., I replied flatly. St. Matthew's Church. That's a bit inconvenient, dear. Connor has a lunch meeting that might extend. Couldn't you have scheduled it for the morning? The sheer absurdity of the question left me dumbfounded, as if I'd chosen the time for a convenience, rather than it being the only slot available at the church where we'd married. Well, we'll try our best, my father's voice interjected. But we might need to leave early. Connor has another commitment this evening. Always Connor. Even then, on the morning of the funeral, I left Hannah's bedside for the first time in 10 days. The nurses vowed to call immediately if anything changed. Megan helped me into the black dress I'd ordered online, brushed my tangled hair, and applied concealer to the dark circles that had become constant features beneath my eyes. "You don't have to do this today," she said softly. "Michael would understand if you stayed with Hannah. I need to say goodbye," I whispered back. For both of us, St. Matthew's Church filled with people whose lives Michael had touched. His college roommates flew in from across the country. Colleagues from every project he'd ever worked on arrived, sharing stories of his integrity and kindness. Our neighbors brought casseroles I knew I wouldn't touch. Michael's elderly parents sat in the front row, leaning on each other, their grief a palpable presence. My parents arrived 17 minutes late, slipping into the second row with Connor lingering behind. My mother wore a navy dress more fitting for a business lunch than her son-in-law's funeral. My father checked his watch 3 times during the service. Connor seemed uneasy, shifting in his seat and glancing at his phone when he believed no one was observing. I delivered the eulogy with an unknown strength, recounting stories of Michael's laughter, his devotion to Hannah, his passion for designing buildings that would endure long after we were all gone. I spoke of his adoration for Sunday morning pancakes, his dreadful singing voice, and his ability to mend anything with duct tape and unwavering optimism. I didn't cry until the very end, when I vowed to keep his memory alive for Hannah, ensuring she grew up knowing precisely who her father had been. My parents left during the final benediction. "Urgent call from Connor's potential employer," my mother whispered as they slipped past. Connor followed, offering an awkward half-hug and a mumbled "sorry for your loss" directed more at the floor than at me. At the cemetery, Michael's colleagues formed a protective circle around me. Megan clutched my hand as the casket was lowered. Michael's mother placed a single white rose on the polished wood, her hands trembling with age and profound sorrow. After everyone departed, I stood alone beside the fresh mound of earth, unable to grasp that Michael lay beneath it. "I don't know how to do this without you," I whispered to the ground. "Hannah needs you." "I need you." The cemetery worker, waiting discreetly by a nearby tree, pretended not to notice my collapse. Eventually, Megan gently guided me back to the car, back to the hospital, back to the vigil beside Hannah's bed. The house, when I finally returned 3 days later for a shower and fresh clothes, felt like a relic of our past life. Michael's coffee mug still rested in the sink. Hannah's backpack hung on its hook by the door, her unfinished math homework peeking from the front pocket. I curled onto our bed, burying my face in Michael's pillow, inhaling the fading scent of his shampoo, and permitted myself to scream until my voice gave out. No one was there to hear me anyway. My parents had made their priorities abundantly clear. Days at the hospital blurred together, forming a monotonous rhythm broken only by Hannah's medical assessments. My existence narrowed to the incessant beeping monitors, the hushed discussions with medical staff, and the constant gnawing dread that Hannah might never awaken. I took an extended leave from work, unable to fathom concentrating on financial projections while my daughter battled for her life. Dr. Lawrence became a constant in my new reality. Each morning he arrived at 7:30 a.m., his voice gentle yet honest as he detailed Hannah's condition. "The swelling in her brain is gradually decreasing," he explained on day 14. "Her intracranial pressure readings are trending in the right direction." I clung to these small victories, scrutinizing his face for any hint of false hope. But Dr. Lawrence never sugarcoated Hannah's situation. "Recovery from traumatic brain injury is a marathon, not a sprint," he often reminded me. "We're looking for incremental progress." Physical therapist Daniel initiated passive movement therapy, meticulously exercising Hannah's limbs to prevent muscle atrophy while she remained unconscious. "We're keeping her body ready," he explained, demonstrating gentle stretches I could perform between his sessions. "When she wakes up, she need her strength." The word "when," not "if," became my lifeline. Nurse Sophia worked the night shift, monitoring Hannah's vitals with quiet efficiency, yet somehow sensing when I needed conversation and when I needed silence. She brought me extra blankets for the uncomfortable recliner that served as my bed, and occasionally persuaded me to Walk to the cafeteria instead of subsisting on vending machine snacks. Your daughter needs you at full strength, she'd state firmly. Self-care isn't selfish. It's necessary. 3 weeks after the accident, while Sophia was adjusting Hannah's fore, I noticed something that made my heart stop. Hannah's index finger twitched, not a random tremor but a deliberate flex. Did you see that? I gasped, gripping Sophia's arm. We watched, barely breathing, until it happened again. Hannah's finger moved. Then her whole hand curled slightly. Dr. Lawrence confirmed what we'd barely dared to hope. Hannah was beginning to emerge from her coma. This is just the initial step, he cautioned. Waking from a traumatic brain injury is a process that can take days or weeks, but those subtle movements gave me something I'd been utterly lacking since the accident: hope. Over the next week, Hannah's signs of consciousness intensified. Her eyelids fluttered. She winced when pricked for blood tests. One morning, as I read aloud from her favorite girl detective book, her eyes briefly opened, unfocused, yet undeniably aware. I wept with joy, holding her hand and telling her how brave she was, how deeply I loved her, how proud her father would be of her fight. I don't know how much she understood, but I desperately needed to voice those words. Dr. Lawrence outlined the path ahead. Hannah has a significant recovery journey. We're observing positive neurological signs, but she sustained serious trauma. She requires extensive rehabilitation therapy: speech, physical, occupational, cognitive. It's going to be comprehensive and intensive, the medical team taught. To communicate with Hannah using hand squeezes. 1 for yes, 2 for no. The first time she responded correctly to a simple question, squeezing once when I asked if she was comfortable. The entire medical team celebrated as if she'd run a marathon. For me, it was better than any marathon. It was proof my daughter was still in there, fighting her way back to me. While Hannah made slow, steady progress, the financial reality of our situation started to emerge. Even with excellent insurance, medical bills accumulated at an alarming pace. Each specialist consultation, every therapy session, each day in the pediatric ICU added thousands to our growing debt. I spoke with the hospital's financial counselor, who outlined our options with kindness but stark clarity. The acute care phase is just the beginning, she explained, detailing rehabilitation facilities, home modifications, and ongoing therapies. These costs can continue for years. Michael's life insurance would assist, but it wasn't designed to cover catastrophic medical expenses of this magnitude. I began liquidating investments, calculating how long our savings would last, and wondering if I'd have to sell our home. Throughout it all, my parents remained notably absent. They called occasionally, asking perfunctory questions about Hannah's condition before invariably shifting the conversation to Connor's job search or their social calendar. They visited just once, staying under 30 minutes. My mother complained about the hospital parking, and my father stood awkwardly at the foot of Hannah's bed, seemingly afraid to approach. She looks so medical, my mother whispered, eyeing the feeding tube and monitoring equipment with thinly veiled discomfort. They departed without offering any meaningful support, financial or emotional. I told myself I didn't need them, that Hannah and I would manage alone. But late at night, when Hannah slept and the hospital corridors quieted, I allowed myself to acknowledge the profound wound their abandonment had created. 6 weeks post-accident, insurance agent Thomas contacted me regarding settlement negotiations. The intoxicated driver who killed Michael and injured Hannah possessed a substantial insurance policy, and his company was keen to settle rather than face a protracted lawsuit and potential punitive damages. Given the circumstances, Thomas explained cautiously, the settlement offer will likely be significant. The driver's history of DU makes this an exceptionally strong case. I asked what significant meant in practical terms. When he quoted a figure, I nearly dropped my phone. It was more money than I had ever imagined, enough to cover Hannah's medical expenses and future care needs. For the first time since the accident, a weight lifted. We would be financially secure. Hannah would receive the care she required. I wouldn't have to choose between physical therapy sessions and paying the mortgage. That evening, Hannah squeezed my hand 3 times, a pattern we hadn't yet established. When I asked what she was trying to communicate, she did it again, 3 squeezes. I love you, I whispered, suddenly comprehending. Is that it? 3 squeezes means I love you? 1 squeeze. Yes. I pressed her small hand against my wet cheek. I love you too, Hannah, more than anything in this world. That night, I called my parents to share the positive news about Hannah's progress and briefly brought up the settlement. Their reaction would change everything. The morning after I mentioned the settlement to my parents, Attorney Jeffrey arrived at the hospital, carrying detailed paperwork and maintaining a carefully controlled expression. We sat in the family consultation room while Hannah underwent her morning physical therapy session with Daniel. The insurance company has presented a formal offer, Jeffrey stated, sliding a document across the table. It's substantial as anticipated. Given the circumstances, Mr. Wells had multiple prior DUI convictions, was significantly over the legal limit, and ran a red light in broad daylight. His liability is irrefutable. I stared at the number on the page, 7 figures, enough to ensure Hannah would receive every treatment, every therapy, every chance to recover as fully as possible. We need to discuss how to structure this, Jeffrey continued. I recommend establishing a medical trust for Hannah's ongoing care. This will safeguard the funds and guarantee their availability throughout her recovery journey and beyond. For the next hour, Jeffrey outlined options for managing the settlement. A substantial portion would be placed into a structured settlement, providing regular payments for Hannah's care over her lifetime. Another portion would be immediately accessible for current medical expenses, necessary home modifications, and specialized equipment Hannah might require during rehabilitation. What about taxes? I asked, my financial analyst background surfacing through the fog of grief and exhaustion. Settlements for physical injuries are generally tax-exempt, Jeffrey explained, but we'll work with a specialized accountant to ensure everything is structured correctly. As Jeffrey detailed the financial specifics, I found myself thinking of Michael. He had always managed our long-term financial planning, playfully suggesting it was fair since I handled our day-to-day finances. You keep us afloat. I'll chart the course, he'd say. Now I was navigating alone, making decisions that would impact Hannah's entire future. Take some time to review everything, Jeffrey advised as our meeting concluded, but don't delay too long. The sooner we accept and structure the settlement, the sooner those funds become available for Hannah's care. I spent that afternoon researching pediatric rehabilitation facilities, calculating lifetime care costs, and consulting with Dr. Lawrence about Hannah's long-term prognosis. The figures were astronomical, but the settlement would cover them. Hannah would receive everything she needed. That certainty felt like the first solid ground I'd stood on since the accident. That evening, my phone rang, my parents' number. Olivia, your father and I have been discussing your situation, my mother began without preamble. We've decided it's time we visited properly. How about tomorrow afternoon? Their abrupt interest caught me off guard. In 7 weeks, they had visited precisely once, staying under 30 minutes and providing no meaningful support. Hannah's been showing real improvement, I said cautiously. She's communicating with hand squeezes and her eyes are focusing. Better. The doctors are optimistic. That's wonderful, dear. And that settlement matter you mentioned, has that progressed? The subtle shift in her tone activated a warning bell in my mind. It's being handled, I replied vaguely. The attorney is working out the details. Your father knows quite a bit about financial matters, she pressed. He'd be happy to review things, offer some guidance. These situations can be complex for someone without experience. I nearly laughed. I was a financial analyst with an MBA. My father was a high school history teacher consistently making poor investment choices. I appreciate the offer, but I have professional advisors, I stated. Will you be coming around lunchtime tomorrow? I should prepare Hannah. She gets anxious around visitors she hasn't seen in a while. The subtle criticism wasn't lost on my mother. We'll be there at 1 o'clock, she said stiffly before ending the call. The next morning, I gently explained to Hannah that her grandparents would be visiting. They haven't been able to come much because they've been busy, I said, choosing my words carefully. Hannah deserved to know her grandparents loved her, regardless of my complicated feelings toward them. Hannah squeezed my hand once. Yes, she understood. Then she squeezed twice. No, she wasn't happy about it. Even at 9 years old, even with a traumatic brain injury, Hannah saw through pretenses. My parents arrived precisely at 1 p.m., carrying a stuffed bear from the hospital gift shop and a cluster of bright balloons. My mother had applied full makeup and wore a smart pantsuit, as if visiting a business associate rather than her injured granddaughter. My father trailed behind her, carrying a folder that instantly piqued my suspicion. "Hannah, look how much better you're doing," my mother exclaimed with forced cheerfulness. "Soon you'll be up and about, back to normal." I saw Hannah's heart rate increase slightly on the monitor. Dr. Lawrence had explicitly warned against suggesting quick or complete recovery. Hannah was indeed making remarkable progress, but faced months, possibly years of rehabilitation. "Hannah is making steady progress," I corrected gently. "We're celebrating each small victory, aren't we, sweetie?" Hannah squeezed my hand once. Yes. My mother placed the bear on Hannah's bedside table, then immediately turned to me. "Olivia, we need to discuss some important matters. Perhaps we could step outside?" "Anything you need to say can be said here," I replied. Hannah's speech therapist encouraged normal conversation around her. "Even if she can't fully participate yet." My mother's smile tightened. "Very well. Your father and I have been discussing the settlement situation. We understand it's quite substantial. It's designed to cover Hannah's medical needs," I stated flatly. "Her care could extend for decades." Of course, my father interjected, opening his folder. "But these situations require careful management. Family support structures." As they continued speaking, I noticed them repeatedly glancing toward the door, clearly desiring a private conversation. I excused myself briefly to use the restroom. And as I returned, I overheard their whispered exchange from the hallway. "We should be entitled to some consideration," my mother was saying. "We're family. Connor's business idea could really take off with proper investment. The settlement is meant to be shared." My father agreed. Family supports family. A cold, sickening realization washed over me. This wasn't about supporting Hannah or me. It was about gaining access to the settlement money. I stepped back into the room, my expression meticulously neutral. "Hannah's getting tired," I announced. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation another time." My parents exchanged glances. "We'll stop by your house next week," my mother stated decisively. "Once Hannah's asleep for the night, we can have a proper family discussion then." After they left, Hannah squeezed my hand twice. No, she hadn't enjoyed their visit. "I know, sweetheart," I whispered, stroking her hair. "I know, that night, I called Megan and explained the situation." Her outrage mirrored what I felt but couldn't articulate. "They can't be serious," she fumed. "That money is for Hannah's care." "I think they're very serious," I replied, watching Hannah sleep. "And I think they're going to push hard." "What will you do?" she asked. Watching my daughter's chest gently rise and fall, I finally answered, "Whatever I have to." Whatever I have to. 1 week after their hospital visit, my parents arrived at my front door precisely at 7 p.m. Connor stood slightly behind them, appearing uncomfortable yet resolute. Hannah was asleep upstairs, a night nurse attending to her while I prepared for what I knew would be an unpleasant conversation. "Olivia dear," my mother greeted me with air kisses that never quite landed. "The house looks well, as good as can be expected given the circumstances." I led them to the living room, observing my father's eyes scanning the space, likely assessing property values and assets. Connor sat on the edge of the sofa, fidgeting with his phone. "Can I offer anyone tea?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. "That would be lovely," my mother replied. "Then we can get down to business." I went to the kitchen, taking longer than necessary to prepare the tea tray. My hands trembled slightly as I arranged cookies no one would touch. Through the doorway, I overheard their hushed conversation, catching phrases like reasonable percentage and family obligation. When I returned with the tea, my parents had positioned themselves on the sofa like a united front. Connor had moved to an armchair, still appearing uncomfortable, but resigned to his part in their scheme. Olivia, my father began once I'd poured the tea. We've given considerable thought to the family situation. This settlement represents a significant opportunity. The settlement is for Hannah's medical care, I stated flatly. Her rehabilitation could take years. The funds will be placed in a medical trust. My mother waved her hand dismissively. Yes, yes, of course. Hannah's needs must be addressed, but surely the settlement exceeds those requirements. These awards typically include substantial compensation for emotional distress, loss of companionship, and so forth. What your mother is saying, my father continued, is that there should be room to support the entire family. We're all affected by this tragedy. I sipped my tea, waiting for them to get to their point. We believe, my mother said, leaning forward, that a fair division would allocate 50% of the settlement to Hannah's care, with the remaining 50% distributed among the family to help us all move forward. Their audacity was breathtaking. I carefully set my cup down, concealing my trembling hands. And what exactly would the family portion support? I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. My mother smiled, clearly misinterpreting my question as interest rather than utter disbelief. Well, Connor has developed an exciting business proposal. A technology startup with tremendous potential. With proper funding, he could truly make something of himself. Connor shifted uncomfortably but nodded. It's an app for coordinating dog walkers, he explained. Like Uber, but for pets. And of course, my father added, your mother and I aren't getting any younger. We need to think about retirement. Perhaps a vacation property where the family could gather, a place for healing. I see, I said quietly. And what about Michael's parents? Are they included in this family distribution? My mother's expression soured. Well, they're not direct blood relatives anymore, are they? I mean, with Michael gone, I stood abruptly. Excuse me for a moment. I walked calmly upstairs, briefly checking on Hannah and the night nurse before entering my bedroom. From my closet, I retrieved a photo album I'd been compiling for Hannah for when she was fully recovered. I wanted her to have preserved memories of her father. I selected 2 photographs and returned downstairs. My parents and Connor were huddled in conversation, which ceased the moment I entered the room. My mother's face held that determined expression I remembered from childhood, the one that always preceded her getting her way, no matter what. Olivia, she began, her voice adopting the manipulative tone I knew too well. I understand this is difficult, but family supports family. That's what we do. Your father and I raised you, supported your education, gave you every advantage. Now it's time for some reciprocity. Connor's business idea is genuinely promising, my father added. With the right investment, it could provide for all of us in the long run. It's what Michael would have wanted, supporting the entire family. At the mention of Michael's name, something hardened within me. How dare they invoke him to serve their greed? You're right, I said softly. Family should support family. My mother's face brightened. I knew you'd see reason, dear. Before we discuss percentages, I continued, I'd like to show you something. I handed them the first photograph. It showed Michael in his casket, his face peaceful yet unmistakably lifeless. One had taken it for Hannah, so someday she would have a record of saying goodbye to her father, a goodbye she had been too injured to attend. My mother gasped. My father's face went ashen. Connor looked away. This is what 50% of my loss looks like, I said, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. This is what happened while you were celebrating Connor's birthday. Before they could respond, I handed them the second photograph. This one depicted Hannah in the ICU, her tiny body connected to ventilators and monitors, her head partially shaved for the life-saving surgeries, her face swollen and bruised beyond recognition. And this is the other 50%, I continued. This is your granddaughter fighting for her life while you were helping Connor prepare for job interviews. The color had completely drained from my mother's face. My father's hands trembled as he held the photograph. Connor looked like he might be ill. The settlement, I said, each word precise and cutting, will be placed entirely in a trust for Hannah's care. Every single penny. It will cover her medical expenses, her therapy, her equipment, her education, her future. It will ensure that my 9-year-old daughter who lost her father and nearly lost her own life, has everything she needs to recover and thrive. I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. True family shows up. True family sits in hospital waiting rooms and brings coffee at 2 o'clock in the morning and holds your hand when you identify your husband's body. True family doesn't wait until there's money involved to suddenly care. My mother's shock was rapidly morphing into indignation. Now listen here, Olivia. We are your parents. We deserve respect and consideration. Respect is earned. I replied quietly, and you haven't earned it. I'd like you to leave now. When you're ready to be actual grandparents to Hannah, to support us without conditions or expectations, you can call. Until then, we don't need the kind of family you're offering. Connor stood first. I'm sorry, Liv, he said, and I was surprised to see genuine regret in his eyes. I didn't mean for it to be like this. My parents rose stiffly, my mother clutching her purse like a shield. You'll regret this decision, she said coldly. When Hannah needs us, when you're overwhelmed trying to manage alone, you'll wish you hadn't been so stubborn, maybe. I acknowledged. But I'd rather struggle alone than watch you treat my daughter's tragedy like a lottery win. Goodbye, Mom. Dad. Connor. I held the door open, watching them walk to their car in silence. As they drove away, a strange mix of grief and relief washed over me. I had lost my husband. I had nearly lost my daughter. And now I had lost my parents too, though. In truth, I suspected they had never truly been mine to lose. That night, I slept in the chair beside Hannah's bed, the monitor's steady beeping a reminder that what remained of my family was still here, still fighting, still worth every sacrifice. 6 months after the confrontation with my parents, Hannah sat in her wheelchair on our back porch, laughing as she tossed bread to the birds congregating in our yard. Her progress had been remarkable, though not without its setbacks. The wheelchair was likely temporary. According to her physical therapists, with continued work, she would probably walk again, though perhaps always with a slight limp. Her speech had returned, sometimes faltering when tired, but growing stronger each week. Cognitive testing revealed lingering effects from her brain injury, particularly concerning mathematics and short-term memory. But her personality, her humor, her essential Hannah-ness remained intact. Mom, she called, pointing to a cardinal. On our fence, look at that red one. Dad would have loved to see it. We had woven discussions about Michael naturally into our daily lives. His photos adorned the house. We shared Dad's stories at dinner, sometimes laughing, sometimes crying, but always keeping his memory vibrant and present. He would have, I agreed, joining her on the porch. Remember how he used to invent silly names for the birds? What do you think he would have called that one? Hannah considered the cardinal seriously. Probably Sir Red Hood the Magnificent. She decided, making us both laugh. Our new routines had gradually solidified. Hannah attended therapy sessions 3 times weekly at a rehabilitation center specializing in pediatric brain injuries. I had returned to work part-time, with flexible hours that allowed me to be home when Hannah needed me. Michael's parents visited monthly, staying in our guest room and filling the house with warmth and stories of Michael's childhood. The settlement had been finalized and structured exactly as Jeffrey had recommended. A trust provided for Hannah's ongoing medical needs, with additional funds set aside for her education and future. Our financial situation was secure, though I would have traded every penny to have Michael back and Hannah uninjured. Mom, Hannah said as we watched the birds, her voice taking on that hesitant quality when she approached difficult topics. Why don't Grandma and Grandpa Ward ever visit? Are they mad at us? The question pierced my heart. Despite everything, Hannah missed her grandparents. I had been careful never to disparage them in her presence, believing she had the right to form her own opinions. They're not mad at us, sweetie, I said carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make choices about where to spend their time and energy. Grandma and Grandpa Ward have been focusing on Uncle Connor lately. Hannah considered this. But they know I got hurt, right? And that Dad died? They know, I confirmed, choosing my next words with extreme care. I think sometimes people don't know how to handle very sad things. They might stay away because they're uncomfortable, or don't know what to say. That's silly. Hannah declared with the straightforward wisdom of children. When you're sad, you need people more, not less. You're absolutely right, I agreed, squeezing her shoulder gently. That's a very smart way to look at it. 3 weeks later, an envelope arrived with my parents' return address. Inside was a card and a 4-page handwritten letter. The card was for Hannah, containing a gift certificate to her favorite bookstore and a simple message, thinking of you. Love, Grandma and Grandpa Ward, nothing elaborate. But it was the first acknowledgement of Hannah they had sent since the confrontation. The letter was addressed to me. I sat at the kitchen table after Hannah was in bed and read my mother's surprisingly vulnerable words. Dear Olivia, she began. I don't know if you'll read this, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. What your father and I did was inexcusable. There are no adequate words to express our remorse, but I feel compelled to try. The photographs you showed us have haunted me every day since. Not because they were shocking, though they were, but because they forced us to confront the reality we had been avoiding. While you were living through unimaginable pain, we were caught up in trivial matters and Connor's endless needs. We failed you as parents. We failed Hannah as grandparents. We have failed as human beings. Your father and I have spent many sleepless nights discussing how we reached this point. How we became people who would choose a birthday party over a daughter's tragedy. Who would try to profit from a child's suffering? There is no excuse, only shame and regret. We don't expect forgiveness, nor do we deserve it, but we want you to know that your words that night changed us. We are trying to become better people, people worthy of eventually being part of your and Hannah's lives again, if you'll ever have us. Connor has also been reflecting deeply. He broke off contact with us for several weeks after that night, calling us disgusting for our behavior. He was right. He's since been volunteering at a rehabilitation center similar to Hannah's, trying to understand what you and she are experiencing. If you're willing, we would like to visit Hannah on her upcoming birthday. No expectations, no demands, just to be present, to begin the long process of earning back a place in your lives. If this is unwelcome, we understand completely. With deepest remorse and love, Mom, I folded the letter, unsure how to feel. Part of me wanted to tear it up, to shield Hannah and myself from further disappointment. But another part recognized genuine remorse in my mother's words. People could change, couldn't they? Wasn't that what I was teaching Hannah about? Her own recovery, that setbacks weren't permanent, that growth was always possible. After several days of consideration, I called my mother. Hannah's birthday gathering will be small, I said when she answered, skipping any greeting. Just a few friends from therapy, Michael's parents, and Megan's family, 3 to 5 p.m. on the last Saturday of the month. If you want to come, you're welcome. But it needs to be about Hannah, not about mending our relationship. The silence on the other end lasted so long I thought the call had dropped. Thank you, Olivia, my mother finally said, her voice thick with what sounded like tears. We'll be there. On Hannah's terms, on your terms. Hannah's 10th birthday arrived with perfect early autumn weather. We set up a small party in the backyard, with decorations featuring her newest obsession, marine biology. Michael's parents helped hang streamers and inflate balloons. Their gentle presence served as a reminder that family could be a source of strength, not just pain. When my parents arrived precisely at 3, the awkwardness was palpable. They carried a large gift, wrapped in paper adorned with dolphins and seahorses, clearly chosen with Hannah's interests in mind. Connor arrived separately a half-hour later, bringing a small gift bag and an uncomfortable smile. Hannah, I said as they approached where she sat in her wheelchair. Look who's here. Hannah studied her grandparents with the direct gaze that had intensified since her injury, as if she was working harder to comprehend the world around her. Hi, she said simply. Hello, Hannah, my mother replied, her usual confidence entirely absent. Happy birthday. We've missed you very much. Hannah considered this. I got hurt, she said plainly. My dad died. I needed you. The brutal simplicity of her statement visibly impacted my parents. My father's eyes filled with tears, something I had witnessed perhaps twice in my entire life. "You're right," he said, kneeling to her, eye leveled despite his arthritic knees. "We should have been there. We made a terrible mistake." "I'm so sorry, Hannah." Hannah studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. "Okay, do you want some cake?" Mom made it with blue frosting inside like the ocean. Just like that, Hannah offered a path forward. Not forgiveness, exactly, but an opportunity to begin again. The party proceeded with surprising ease. My parents made genuine efforts to engage with Hannah, asking about her therapy and listening attentively to her sometimes faltering explanations. Connor spoke with me privately, apologizing again for his role in the settlement demand. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, watching Hannah show my father her collection of seashells. "About the kind of person I want to be, the kind of brother, the kind of uncle. It's a process," I said, neither accepting nor rejecting his apology. "We're all figuring it out day by day." 2 weeks later, my parents asked if they could attend one of Hannah's therapy sessions to better understand her recovery journey. The following month, they suggested family therapy with a counselor, specializing in family estrangement and reconciliation. Slowly, cautiously, we began rebuilding what had been fractured, creating something new rather than attempting to restore what had never truly existed. On the 1-year anniversary of Michael's death, Hannah and I visited the cemetery together. She walked with her walker, insisting on making the journey from the car to the grave under her own power. We placed flowers on the headstone, and Hannah pressed her hand against the engraved letters of her father's name. "I think Daddy would be proud of us," she said simply. "We got hurt, but we kept going. He would be incredibly proud of you," I agreed, blinking back tears. "You're the bravest person I know, and you too, Mom," she insisted. "You take care of me and you go to work. And you don't cry until you think I'm asleep." I smiled through my tears, caught by my perceptive daughter. "We take care of each other, don't we?" As we made our slow way back to the car, Hannah asked, "Are we going to be okay? Just the two of us?" I considered the question seriously, giving her the honest answer she deserved. "We're going to be different than we were before. There will always be a Michael-shaped hole in our lives. But yes, we're going to be okay. We have each other. We have people who love us. We're building a new kind of family." That evening, we sat on the porch swing Michael had installed the summer before the accident. Hannah leaned against my shoulder as we watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Family isn't just who you're born to," I said softly, thinking of Megan, who had appeared when my parents wouldn't, of Michael's elderly parents who traveled despite their health issues to support us, of the nurses and therapists who had become part of our extended circle. "Family is who shows up, who stays, who loves without conditions." Hannah nodded sleepily against my shoulder. "Like us," she murmured. "Exactly like us," I agreed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I reflected on the journey we had traveled in the past year. The unimaginable loss, the profound betrayal, the arduous road of recovery, but also the discovery of strength I never knew I possessed, the deepening of true friendships, the rebuilding of family relationships on more honest foundations. We had survived the worst life could throw at us. Whatever came next, Hannah and I would face it together, our small but mighty family of two. And what would you do if your world shattered and your own family abandoned you in your darkest hour? How would you redefine family after a loss like that? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if Hannah's courage inspired you, hit that like button.